Hello, thank you for joining us here today. This is Michael Halper with SalesScripter, and today we're going to talk about how to interview sales candidates and to improve your ability to pick the right person to hire. Now, I'm going to provide you a lot of tips here today, and just so you know where all this comes from, you may or may not know, but I'm the founder and CEO of SalesScripter. Before I started SalesScripter, I started a small business called Launchpad Solutions. We did cold call outsourcing, appointment setting for small businesses. In running that business, I had to hire a lot of work at home cold callers. What I found was that hiring and staffing these individuals was more difficult than actually hiring your full-time salespeople with base salary and full comp plan. The people that we hired really needed a very particular skill set, mindset, and the key for that business to be successful was us picking and hiring the right people. So in going through trial and error in staffing that business, I learned a lot of do's and don'ts, and I'm going to provide those here today. So the agenda here today, we're going to start out talking about shifting and fine-tuning your interview strategy. Then I believe the key to being a good interviewer is having good questions to ask. So I'll talk to you about interview questions, and then we'll wrap up with some interview process tips. And so let's start out talking about interview strategy. And so let's take a step back and think about what is our goal. So of course, no brainer here. The goal is to select the best person available out of all of the people that we interview, of course. Now, what I'm going to show you here today is going to help you to reduce the time you spend interviewing. Most likely you have other things to do, so you don't want to spend a lot of time interviewing. And what I show you here today will help you to be more efficient in the actual interviews that you do. But what I'm going to show you here today is actually bigger than that in terms of saving you time. The reality is that when you're interviewing, not only do you want to be as optimum as possible with the interviews that you hold for that particular position, but everything that you do should be about eliminating or delaying the next time that you have to interview for that position. In other words, everything that you do during the interview process should be focused on hiring the right person so that you minimize your turnover. Of course, people are going to leave at some point, but if you can pick the people that will stay longer, then you're delaying the amount of time that you have to interview for that same position again. And the less times you have to interview and hire and place people for a particular position, the more you reduce the overall time you spend interviewing, which not only is that a big benefit to you in terms of not spending as much time interviewing, but you also will have more seasoned staff. So there's a lot of benefits there. But everything that I show you here today will help you to achieve these goals. The first step in terms of making you a better interviewer is to shift your mindset just a little bit. Now, if you are needing to fill a position and you're starting to interview people, of course, you will have an interviewer mindset, which this is, okay, I'm going to be meeting with people. I need to ask them questions and pick the person that I feel is best. That's the interviewer mindset. I want you to make a small shift and start to view yourself more like a detective. Think of a detective that's trying to solve a crime. They are going out and looking for all the different clues so that they find the correct person that fits the crime. They don't want to go out and find someone that might have committed the crime. They want to find the actual person. So they're going to try to find as much evidence and as much clues to narrow down to find the person that most likely fits the crimes. So you should think of yourself in this way. And when you're interviewing, you're looking for all the different clues to find the best person available for the position that you're trying to fill. Now, just like a detective, when they're trying to solve a crime, they will go and access different sources of information, different databases, talk to different people. You as an interviewer or as a detective, you have different sources of information. Certainly you have the resume of the person you're interviewing. You also have access to, most likely the people that you're interviewing might have a social media presence that you can go and access and get clues from. You have interview questions that you can ask when you're interviewing, and then you have references that the person may provide that you can call after the interview. Now, out of all of these, I personally believe your best source of information are the interview questions that you ask. This is the key tool that you can use as being a detective to try to find the right person. And I will talk to you about how to optimize and improve the interview questions that you ask. Now, in order to start to figure out what clues to look for, I want to break down what we're looking for into 3 different categories. And it's very simple: past, present, and future in terms of the people that we're interviewing. So past is basically, what have they done in the past? Of course, their experience, their education, what they've accomplished, any skills they've learned. The present is who they are. This is their personality and their tendencies. What are they likely to do in different situations? And the future is, what do they want? their goals, their aspirations, their preferences. Now, when you're interviewing, I don't want you to be thinking about these three different categories, but I show you this to point out some flaws that we often fall into when we are just following our natural instincts. What a lot of people do when they are interviewing is they only look and focus primarily on the past. What have they done? Especially when interviewing salespeople, they look at the quota performance and hire someone either based on good quota performance in past sales jobs, or they pass up on someone because of sales performance. And while those are good data points, you need to combine the past of their experience and what they've done with who they are. Let me give you an example. So if you are looking for someone who has a strong work ethic, that is the present. That is who they are. That's a personality trait. But what we often do is we look for someone that has a strong work ethic by seeing what their sales performance is. And if someone has good sales performance, we assume that they're a hard worker. But someone could have good sales performance by not working hard. Maybe they had a good territory, they got lucky, they timed it right. So in other words, you need to look at both the past of what they've done and the present of who they are and combine those two and get data points for both of those to try to predict what they're likely to do if you hire them. And the future here, what they want is very important and something that's often overlooked. It's important to know what they want because we could assume that what they want aligns with the position that we're looking to fill and we hire them and it turns out that it doesn't fit with what they want. And I'll give you an example here. Sometimes you hear about people getting married and they find out that they wanted different things regarding kids. One person wants to have children, the other person doesn't, and they really didn't discuss or identify that difference before getting married, and that's a problem. We can often do that when we're hiring someone. We can assume that they want the different aspects of the job and then we hire them and they end up not being a good fit or not lasting long. So it's really important to identify what is the future that that person wants and make sure that aligns with the job we're looking to fill. So by collecting clues in these three areas, we will improve our ability to pick the right person. All right, so now let's talk about how to create an optimum list of interview questions to be that great detective and to find all those clues so that we can improve our ability to make good decisions. And I want to start by giving you an example of something I learned while I was hiring those work-at-home cold callers. Early on in that business, I interviewed someone that I thought they were going to be great. They sounded great, they had a good personality, and it seemed like they were going to be a great fit. And I hired them and I trained them and spent some time with them. And then on their first day of work, we ran into a problem. And the problem was that these were work at home people and the person was perfect in every way, but they did not have a good internet speed in their home. And these cold callers were using a voice over IP phone and CRM and all sorts of applications. So they needed good internet speed in order to do their job. And real quickly, I realized this person wasn't going to work out. Even knowing they wanted the job and they were a great fit, they could not perform the job because they did not have one of the requirements of good internet speed. And when I reflected back on the interview, I realized I did not ask them about their internet speed. And that was a big error for me. And what I learned from that was that there was a requirement of good internet access. And that was a clue that I did not look at because I didn't ask a question about what their internet speed was. And I realized for everybody that I interview, I have to ask about their home office environment and their internet speed. And what that led me to figure out when I was interviewing all these people every day was that for each requirement of the position, there is a question that should be asked. So if they need to have good internet speed, then I need to ask a question of, do you have good internet? They need to have a good work at home setup, meaning they're not sitting, in front of their TV. They have a table to work on and good quiet environment. I need to ask, tell me about your workspace. And if the job involves them making cold calls all day, I need to understand, how do you feel when you're making cold calls? In that particular position, I was going to teach them a lot of processes. So I need someone who can learn and follow processes. So I need to ask them, tell me about a process that you had to learn in the past. So this is how I became a good interviewer, is that I realized, okay, in order to pick the right person for a job, I need to make a list of requirements. And for each requirement, I need to then ask a question to see how that person matches up. Now, we do a lot of this informally. I think that when we improvise, we follow this process. But if you understand this relationship, you can get very organized and make a very clear list of requirements and then a corresponding list of questions. And then you can ask each person that you interview the same questions. So that is the foundational concept that I'm going to show you here and build on as I show you how to interview sales candidates. Now, one thing I want to point out, and I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but a big part of being a good detective is figuring out the best way to phrase your questions. So you want to ask as many open-ended questions as possible. Notice that regarding the work at home setup, I'm not saying, do you have a home office or do you have a place where you can work at home where they can answer yes or no? I'm asking, tell me about your workspace. That way you're getting the other person to use their own words and to describe it to you. And when they do that, that's very different than them saying yes or no. And with that, you're going to get a lot more data, a lot more clues to improve your ability to find the right person. So ask open-ended questions. Now, as you work to build your list of interview questions, you could just create a list of requirements and then create a question for each. One thing that I do to improve your ability to make sure you don't miss any requirements is I break the requirements and the questions down into 6 categories. You have experience, skills, personality, education, financial, and logistics. So now I'm going to go through each category and I'm going to show you examples for each of these. Now, I want to point out, I'm going to show you about 3 example questions for each of these categories and move through this pretty quickly. Some of those certainly you could use, but most likely you'd want to create your own because the requirements for you will be unique from what I'm showing you here today and from anybody else, and your requirements can change for each position that you're looking to fill. So what I want to show you here today is more of the concept of how to build your list of interview questions. But after I show you these 6 categories, I will show you a resource that we've created that is a database of questions that you can access. So look for that at the end. So let's start out by talking about experience. So of course you have experience requirements that you're looking for all the different positions that you look to fill, but here's some examples. So if we're looking for a salesperson that's going to need to generate leads, get into new accounts, we have an experience requirement of they need to have some experience of prospecting, cold calling. Maybe let's just hypothetically say that we're targeting manufacturers. So we'd like someone that has experience selling to manufacturers. And of course, regarding experience, we want someone that has a successful history of hitting sales targets. So if those are 3 requirements, for each requirement, we can come up with a question. Tell me about your prospecting experience. Notice that I'm not saying, do you have experience cold calling or can you cold call? I'm saying, tell me about your experience. Experience selling to manufacturers. How much experience do you have selling to manufacturers? We can be a little bit more closed off there. Now, we're looking for someone that has success hitting sales targets. So there's not instead of just asking a question, have you successfully hit your sales targets? Here, I have more of a placeholder here to discuss sales performance. After we get through the questions and we talk about the interview process, I will show you a structured process that you can use for discussing previous sales history and previous sales performance. So there's a structured process to go through and the key things to look for there, but just a placeholder here. Let's move on to the next category, which are skills. Of course, there are particular skills we might be looking for. Maybe we're looking for good communication skills, ability to deliver presentations, familiar using CRM applications. Again, just examples here just to demonstrate this process. Tell me about a time when you displayed good communication skills. Notice here, I'm not saying, do you have good communication skills, but I'm using more of an open-ended question to get the other person talking. Can you share some examples of presentations you have delivered? What CRM applications have you used? So it can be more specific there. Moving on to personality. So now remember, experience is more of that past. What have they done in the past up until this point? But that only tells us part of the picture. We can't just use the experience to predict how this person's going to react in different situations or operate in this position. So we need to combine the experience with some of their personality requirements. So maybe a personality requirement we're looking for is we want someone with a strong work ethic, someone that has integrity, someone that's very organized. Of course, the personality requirements you prefer will be completely unique, but for each of these, we want someone with a strong work ethic. We don't want to necessarily just say, do you have a strong work ethic? We want to say, tell me about a time when you displayed a strong work ethic. Regarding integrity, what does the word integrity mean to you? Now, I want to point out, I'm not saying these questions are phrased perfectly, or these are the questions you should ask for these particular characteristics and requirements, but phrase these questions however it makes sense for you, but these do provide a good example of moving away from just yes, no types of questions. We want someone that's organized. Can you share an example of something that you keep organized in your life? Getting the other person talking, getting more clues. Moving on to education, certainly we might want someone who has a minimum of a high school diploma, okay, preferred bachelor's degree. Maybe it would be great if they've been through some sales training before. Now, by the way, I want to point out, I'm going to show you questions to ask here. A lot of times you might have education requirements that you don't need to ask questions. You can get this information from the resume and other sources of information. But if you don't have the resume, certainly you could ask, tell me about where you went to school. Regarding formal sales training, that might not be on the resume. So what formal sales training have you been through? Moving on to financial requirements. One thing I learned when I was hiring those work-at-home people is that the job did not pay a lot. So I needed someone who needed money enough to come to work, be motivated, and smile and dial. But I needed someone who did not have enough bills and personal requirements so that they needed to make a ton of money. So you're really trying to thread the needle. And this is really the case with every position that you're looking to fill. You need someone who's in the right sweet spot where they'll be satisfied with the amount of money that you have available to pay for the position. So with that, you have a financial requirement of you're looking for someone that can fit with a 60K base and 60K compensation plan for this example. Earnings history of more than 100K per year. So if you're going to pay someone 100K per year, you want someone who's already been in that vicinity of that type of pay, meaning if they've only made $30,000 a year and you're going to pay them a 60K base, they're going to be making so much money off the base that they're not going to be motivated. So you really need to find out the financial requirements of what the position is paying and the financial requirements of what the applicant is looking for to find out if you're in the right area. So if that's the comp plan, what's your current comp plan? What type of plan are you looking for? Talk regarding earnings history. What did you W-2 the past 3 years? That's a great question to ask to find out where the other person's been to see if it matches up with the position you're looking for. All right, the next category is logistics. And certainly if you're looking to fill a position, there are logistics with the person you hire, logistics with the job. Let me give you some examples. So maybe there's a start date. You want to identify if that person is in that vicinity of being able to start around that time. Maybe you need the person to relocate. Maybe there's a lot of travel involved. The example that I gave you of internet access, work at home environment, those are examples of logistics. And by having this category broken out, this is a way to make sure you don't miss asking some of these questions, like in the example, how I forgot to ask about internet access. So this is going to push you to make sure you're getting all the clues that you need to get so that you pick the right person. So if you need them to start in January, what time frame are you working against? When would you be able to start, able to relocate? How open are you to relocating? You need them to travel. How do you feel about business travel? Again, maybe not the right questions, but the key here is that you're talking to the prospect about all the logistical details of the position. All right, those are the 6 core requirement areas, but I'm going to give you 2 bonus areas, and you may or may not need these, but I'll just put these out here. So you have some introduction questions. These are questions that you could ask before you dive into the experience. How's your day going so far? Did you find us okay? Just some interview warm-up questions. A good question to ask is, why are you looking for a new opportunity? How did you find out about us? What do you know about us? What caught your attention about this position? Tell me more about yourself. So you might not need those. That's fine, but these are good warm-up questions, and you could copy them or take anything from there that you might not currently be asking. Interviewing and recruiting is a sales job, so there should be a close at the end. And here's some examples of closing questions that you could ask. How do you feel about this position? What do you like or dislike? That's a great trial close question, similar to what you would ask a prospect if you're selling a product. Why is this the right position for you? Now, you may know why they should want it, but get them to tell you why they want it, or if they do, what other options are you considering? So just like if you were selling a product, you want to figure out what you're competing against. What are their other options? How does this position compare to the other options? How would you feel about staying where you currently are at? What questions do you have for me? So those are great questions to ask at the end of your interview and can help you to find out where you're at, what the applicant wants, how you line up with their other options, or what else they're considering. All right, so like I said, you could use a lot of those questions, but likely you're going to need to create your own questions. And what I want to show you now is a resource that you can use to build your own list of interview questions. And it's actually inside of SalesScripter. So let me flip over to SalesScripter real quick. All right, so this is SalesScripter, and this is an area inside of SalesScripter that we call recruiting, and we have a bunch of recruiting tools. Basically, when I realized, okay, for each job that I'm filling, I need to make a list of requirements. For each requirement, I need to have a question. I basically started to create a database of all the different requirements that someone would want in those different categories and then created a question or two for each requirement. And that's basically what's here. And what you can do is you can come here. There's an area here called Interview Builder. If I just create a question list, and I'll just do demo, basically you'll see here that here are those categories, and we go through this step-by-step process by identifying the requirements for the position, the questions, then we have our introduction questions, closing questions, and then we can edit the list. Now, I won't show you this in too much detail, but here are all those categories that I showed you. And for each category, you'll see there's a list of requirements. So let's say we want someone that's loyal. We need someone that is not resistant to change, a self-starter. You can basically drag and drop and build your requirements here. Now, one thing that this can do is this can help you to think of things that you might not have thought of in terms of requirements for your position. We need someone with presentation skills, ability to learn new skills, okay? In one of these categories, whether it's personality or skill or financial, there may not be a pre-written requirement for what you're looking for, and you can easily add that here. Let's say that a skill that we want is able to train others, okay? If I hit enter here, then that creates a new box, and I can then add that to my list. Now I'm gonna go ahead, you could go through each of these categories and basically build all the requirements by dragging and dropping for the position that you're looking to fill. And if I click next, now basically what it does is it grabs all of our requirements, and for each requirement that we've selected in the database, we've already written a few questions for each, and you can just pick which one you like. So if we're looking for someone that's loyal, can you share an example of a time when you had to break your loyalty to something or someone? Again, whether or not that's the right question, you have a few options to choose from here, and you can just drag and drop and basically build an optimal list. So a couple things here. One is this may give you ideas of new questions to ask. It also might save you time from having to write your own or create your own. And it just gives you a structured process. And what you end up with is you end up with an optimum list of interview questions based on the position that you're looking to fill. So I just want to show you that. Now, we actually do have a free trial of this area of SalesScripter, and I'll put a link in the description of where you can sign up for a free trial of this particular feature. All right, now let's wrap up with a few interview process tips. Now, whether you follow our process for creating questions or not, one thing that I recommend you do is applicant scoring, which is using a numeric value to score the applicant based on the way they've answered your questions. What this allows you to do is instead of just after interviewing a bunch of people, you just go with your gut and pick the person that you had the best conversation with or the person that feels right. You can combine your gut with this numerical data, this quantitative data to make a better decision on who's the best person to pick. Now, one of the great things about breaking out your questions according to those categories is that if you do some sort of scoring, you can have a score for the different categories. And depending on the position that you're looking to fill, maybe education's the most important thing, maybe experience is the most important thing, maybe personality is, but you can look at this example here that sometimes some people are strong in certain areas, and this will show you which areas they're strong in. And you could make a decision. Maybe you hire the person that has the most total points, or maybe you hire the person that has the most experience points, or the person that has the most personality points, whatever's most important to you or the position or whatnot. And you can combine this with the conversations you had, but this just helps you to be a better detective and have more data and make a better decision. It still might be difficult to pick the right person, but this just increases the odds. Now, I actually want to go back and show you something in SalesScripter, which is in SalesScripter, we actually have this area here called Applicant Qualifier. If you build your interview question list inside of SalesScripter and inside the interview builder, we actually display those questions here in a tool that we call Applicant Qualifier. And you can see those categories here of introduction, personality, skills, financial, education, and whatnot. And you can flip through here to get to the particular question for each category. Now, what we do is we display the question, and you have two options. You can make some notes, and you can also score. So a lot of times you might just actually only score their answer. You might not need the actual notes, but you could do whatever makes sense. But the nice thing about this is a very easy way to enter data for each applicant that you're interviewing. And if you score all of the different applicants that you interview, then all of that data is displayed in this other tool here that we call Applicant Ranker. You could certainly have this just in an Excel spreadsheet, but SalesScripter makes it real easy to see all of the points for all of the different people that you're interviewing, and you can filter this according to each job, and you can see their total points, and you can sort this data to see, okay, let me see who has the most education points or the most experience points. This can help you to rank the applicants. So let's say that you interview 20 people. It can be easy to forget some of the people that you talk to, and you only really remember the people at the end of the process. Well, this helps you to have a very clear picture of all the different people you met with and see how you scored them and make a better decision at the end. So just want to show you that. Again, you can also use this feature with that free trial that I'll put a link in the description. All right, let's talk about reviewing their sales history. So this is going to be really great data to try to gather from the person that you're interviewing. And here's a structured process of all the different things you can talk about, and go through each position and get the applicant to share the following. And you can either start with the most recent position and go back, or start at the beginning and work your way to the present. But go through each position and ask the applicant to share with you their quota and performance against the quota for each year. Get them to share with you tactics for finding new business. Get them to share memorable wins and losses, what they liked or disliked, any lessons learned, and most importantly, most likely they've changed jobs in their sales history, and find out why they left each job. This is going to be really good data. Of course, they might not be honest about some of these different things, but the most important thing that you can do is ask about these things and get them to talk and try to get some clues from them. And so, like I said, go through each position, and each position, as they're talking about that particular role, ask them about these different things, then move on to the next position. This will give you a very good picture of what they've done in the past according to the answers they give you. Of course, you have to factor in that some of it may be fluffed. It might not be completely honest, but these are clues, right? When you're a detective and you're talking to potential suspects, not all of them are going to be honest. So you have to get more data so that you can make the best decision. But this is definitely a way to get really good information on what they've done in the past, and that can help you to determine how they might fit in your role. All right, so that's pretty much it. Hopefully you got some good tips today that will help you with improving your ability to interview and hire the right people. If this was helpful to you, if you at least got one tip that you think will help you to be a better interviewer and you want to return the favor, very easy for you to do. Simply like, comment, share this video, subscribe to our channel. Any or all of those help us tremendously, and none of those cost you anything. If you like our tips, you may want to follow us on social media. We post sales tips every morning on all of these social platforms. Hopefully this was helpful, and let us know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching to the end of the video, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a great day.